that line.
Absolutely.
Love it. Yeah, yeah, good one.
Okay,
Thunderbirds.
well,
Okay, I can remember it.
we are ready to start. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Good, beautiful. Okay, so this is
רוטשו,
sorry, היי, שלום ראובן. This is
מנדל, בקשה קטנה, כשאתה שולח את הקישור, תשלח אותה לא רק בזום, בדואר, כי קשה להתחבר, אין לי זום באייפד. הבנת או לא? לא הבנת, טוב.
אתה רוצה,
טוב.
אתה צריך, יש עוד רק עופר, האופציה השנייה זה רק בפייסבוק. אם אתה הולך
לא, בדואר גם טוב.
בדואר.
Mail, email.
Oh,
You mean the email?
email. Okay, we haven't got email set up for the share yet, but we're working on it. Please go.
תגיד לדוח, הוא ירכיב לך אימייל.
After Tishrei, Bezat Hashem, we're hoping to do a bunch of much more fully information, text-based JLI classes, which are going to be lots of fun. But for now,
למה זה לא עולה?
express me, I'm by the beach. I'm trying to relax over here. All right. I hope everyone's doing well under this beautiful lockdown situation.
תעמוד.
Wherever you are in Australia, maybe Reuben's the only place in Australia that doesn't actually have a lockdown. So at least we have one person in that situation. I don't want to say a free man because that sounds politically incorrect. That would imply that the rest of us are not free. But the question that I'm going to pose to you today is about freedom. Freedom of speech is one thing that we all acknowledge that there's an element of freedom of speech, but there's limits. There's limits to how much freedom of speech we can have. We spoke about a few weeks back the concept of evil talk, how the Torah has created a rule against Lashon Hara, not speaking evil and gossip against other people. That's what we spoke a few weeks ago. This week we're going to focus on thoughts. Now those that have come to my Tanya Shir will recognize some of the concepts that we're going to be discussing today. But today we will talk about it more from a halachic perspective and focus less than on the philosophical elements of it like we do when we come to the Tanya. Okay, we will touch on some of those aspects, so there will be some revision for those that are, but we're going to talk about it more halachically. Once again, it's a law in Torah that is somewhat unspoken to a certain degree, or not very well spoken, at least not in the less religious, so to speak, areas of Judaism. I don't think you would find this. You would find discussion about a mitzvah like this perhaps in a yeshiva or in a very religious type of environment where we're trying to help people really work on themselves. Then you might hear about this, or in a Tanya shir or a shir about thought and about self-improvement. So it kind of seems weird. So I want to just show you how this topic is somewhat deeper or more, it's more concrete in Judaism than just a good idea. What I mean is that there's actually a Torah mitzvah on the concept of what we are supposed to think. And that's like going into no territory that the Torah is already telling us how to think, right? We don't like people telling us how to think. We don't like governments telling us how to think. We don't like our parents telling us we don't like anybody teaching us how to think, right? At least that's the way we've been taught. So let's just start with a few psukim. And let's just see it inside. Our first pasuk takes us to Leviticus, Vayikra, verse. Sorry. It is. Sorry, I went too far. Okay, let's look at this. Verse 4, pasuk Dalet. The first thing, the concept that we're going to focus on today is the idea of thinking about things that we're not supposed to. Now this comes about, it's more or less the same law that appears in two different places within the Torah. and I want to show you also Rashi's commentary on them. So let's look over here for a moment. Al tifnu el ha'elelim. Now the word tifnu means to turn. Don't turn towards Elilim. What is Elilim? Elilim is usually translated as idols. But if you look at this area, it retranslates, the English translates it as worthless idols. Okay, it's not just idols, it's worthless idols. The next verse, the next words go on. You cannot make molten deities, you can't make statues or images. Ani Hashem lekechem, I am Hashem your God. Now we are going to focus mainly on the first four words. Al tifnu el ha'elalim. Do not think about the worthless idols. Now the word elilim comes from the word kel, but also means al. Al means don't or not, which tells us that, if you look inside, let's look inside Rashi actually. Al tifnu el ha'elalim, do not turn towards elilim, la'avdam, to serve them. Don't think about serving gods, just don't even think about it. Elilim lashon al. What does al mean? With an aleph, there's al with an ayin, there's al with aleph. Al with an with an aleph means not or don't. Kullahu chashuv. Why do they get the translation of here as worthless idols? The word elilim is telling us that idols are really ultimately worthless. Okay, this is going to be a very important conversation when you get to Chassidut, because this is teaching us that anything serving anything other than God is considered serving nothing. It's worthless. You're doing nothing. You're worshipping nonsense. It's like, I don't mean to put anything or anyone down, but I'm sure some people may have heard of this competition called the Olympics, right? So the Olympics started off as a worshipping of the body, right? It was a Greek way of worshipping the body and trying to show supremacy of one body over the other, perfection of the body, etc. That is one form of idolatry. Of course, most people would say today it's not looked at as the same way. Even Israel won 2 gold medals. Maybe there's some value to it. Of course, it's wonderful to watch, and people can do quite incredible things. However, the source of that is serving any type of idolatry. So that's why, by the way, certain people for that reason would prefer to watch a soccer game that is the World Cup rather than the Olympics. That just because some people feel like it has a idolatrous connotation. But that's not necessarily widely accepted, just a concept out there. But all concepts that people were to serve, for example, if you serve the Olympics, like you live for the Olympics, that's considered an idolatry. If you watch the Olympics, it's good to see how people have worked hard to improve, that's one thing. But if you start to kind of make a god, like I often meet Victorians that they tell us, what type of religion, and I don't know what the name for it is, but their footy is. It's like, it's the religion in Victoria, the number one religion in Victoria is what type of ethnic group did you put on the census? I don't know if they had, I believe in footy. But anyway, that's if and there are certain people that take it to a level of belief, that would be considered like an idolatry. It's not. If you do it for fun, it's not a problem. If you do it because you're looking for entertainment, etc., it would not have exactly. But it's telling you that anything that is considered a service or worship is nothing, ultimately is nothing. You're doing worthless acts, and that's forbidden. As people, we are not allowed to do things that are worthless. And therefore, if we're going to serve somebody, there's only one true thing to serve. There's only one existence to worship, and that's God. Anything else that you worship is nothing. Okay, it's considered like nothing. Okay, but our focus tonight is the tifnu, the the turning towards it, not necessarily even serving it, but even just thinking about it is our problem. Now that's taking things to the extreme level. All right, I'm going to stop with this pasuk and take us to another pasuk. Let's see if I managed to find it, or it was Bamidbar.
Rabbi, just before you do, sorry,
Oh,
I do want to mention the example you gave is quite valid, of course, with the Olympics, but
yeah.
to put it in context, to avoid the body worship, but to appreciate the value of the competition, I'd say we have to mention the Paralympics, because the Paralympics, people with disability competing and trying to be their best, that moves right away from body worship.
100%. And I want to say that the whole concept of what was his name, the Jewish man that invented the Paralympics, Sir, I knew his name.
Rabbi,
Yeah. Oh, hello.
hi. I know in 1896, Pierre de Coubertin reintroduced the Olympic Games to the whole world. He was French. I didn't realize there was a Jewish person in
No. So what I'm saying is,
on the Paralympics. Sorry.
so because Joe mentioned about disability, so he actually cut out for a bit difference, and I actually think that as incredible as the Olympics are, I don't get to watch either of them, and I do think that they are incredible to watch, but the actual Paralympics I actually find more incredible. And if you there's a movie that I've never watched that I would love to watch one day, made by BBC, called I think it's called The Best of Men, because I look research into it, because recently when I was listening to a talk by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, he brought up the topic, and it was made by, I think, a German Holocaust survivor who was working in a hospital of for veterans that had injured veterans. I don't know if I can't remember. I think it was from the Second World War, and these people were basically being neglected to die, and most of them were dying very quickly. And he introduced competitions in sports, which ultimately developed into the Paralympics, and London was hosting the Olympics a short while later. And he made and convinced the Olympic committee, whoever it was, to allow these people with disabilities, these veterans, to do some type of competing, and that led to the Paralympics. And basically it transformed the whole way of how disabilities are looked at, and that's definitely an incredible thing. Definitely not worshipping, but that's about the power of the human body and human soul, about how we have the ability to overcome obstacles. And just because a person is bound up by some type of disability, that does not make them in any way incapable or less of a person, which is really took a mind twist from and was a very important change in the post-Holocaust era, where we know the Nazis treated all people with disabilities as totally worthless and just sent them straight to the gas chambers. So that's an incredible story. Of course, the Rebbe famously was the person that coined the term special needs people, because he said that the whole concept of people with disability is that they have a disability, then they must have a spirit in another area, and therefore they actually are miyuchadim, mitsuyonim, he called them. And he did that when Israeli soldiers came to visit him. Injured Israeli soldiers from the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War came to visit him, and he turned the term never existed before the Rebbe gave it. But there you see how two Jewish people were able to transform something, and that's definitely not at all idolatry. And I'm not even saying that the Olympics is idolatrous, by the way. All I'm saying is that if it's done as a way of service or worship, then it would be idolatrous. So the way that some people take their certain things in their life as though they're worshipping it, that's problematic. That's what it's saying. So, but what we want to focus on as well, and by the way, once again, anybody that watched the Olympics, I think it's great, and I hope it kept you busy. It's probably better than most things that you see on Netflix in any case, because most of them are anti-Semitic or who knows what. So if you watch the Olympics instead of Netflix, that's also a good thing. All right, let's actually get into some content over here. This next one is actually from the third paragraph of the Shema, which is in the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, and in chapter 15. Let's have a look at it. Now, in the third chapter of Shema, the third parasha of Shema, talks about the mitzvah of tzitzit. The mitzvah of tzitzit, we know that men are obligated to wear tzitzit. If they have a four-cornered garment, they should put tzitzit on it. And it tells us that the reason why they're supposed to wear the tzitzit is because the tzitzit is there to remind us of the 613 mitzvot. So let's look at this pasuk. I'll actually go back a verse just so that you can see a little bit of the content to make it easier. Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem v'asu lehem tzitzit. Speak to the Jewish people. So God is telling Moshe to tell the Jewish people that they should make for themselves tzitzit al kanfei bigdeihem, on the corners of the garments, ledoratam, for future generations. V'natnu al tzitzit, and you should put on tzitzit hakanaf, the corner should be tzitzit. Patil techeles, you should also have one of them should be of techeles. The discussion for another time. We'll get there one day. This is the tzitzit. I don't know. I don't think I could pick up my tzitzit to be in the camera. That's embarrassing. Sorry. V'haya lachem letzitzit, maybe soon. And therefore it says it should be for your tzitzit. Uri temoto. What's going to happen? You're going to see them. If you see the tzitzit, uschartem et kol mitzvot Hashem, the tzitzit remind us of all the 630 mitzvot. V'asitem otam, you'll do them. Now this is what's relevant for our discussion today. V'lo taturu achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem Hashem atem zonim achreim. And you will not wander, taturu, you will not wander or stray after your hearts and after your eyes that you naturally are straying after. Thank you, Noach. I see you got a pair of tzitzis over there. The problem is that your green screen over there is blocking it out a bit. So you got to just make it directly in front of your face. You could show us again, but directly in front of your face.
I'll get rid of my background.
No, it's fine. Just hold it in front of your face so that I could. No, still can't see it. No. It becomes the background. Sorry.
Yeah,
You have to turn it
none?
back.
I'm looking for none and I can't find no background. Okay.
Okay. Now do me a favor. Could you show me just give me one of the corners for a second? Okay. Now take up from the corners. 1 second. I'm actually going to stop the screen so that we can see this better. And I'm going to show you as the main screen. Okay. Now take the corner and show us how many knots are there on the strings. Before the strings, how many knots do you have? Count the knots for me. Can you show me the knots? Okay, so there's 1.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, so there's 5 knots. How many strings do you have in that corner? Could you count the strings, please? 8.
4,
Beautiful.
4,
So that's 13. Now, how many mitzvot are there in the Torah?
13.
613. The word tzitzit is 90, tzaddik is 90, yud is 10, tzaddik and yud, that's another, so 100, and then 90, 10, 90, 10, and 400 is the taf. That numerical value of the word tzitzit is 600. Then you have the 5 knots and the 8 strings that equal 613. So that's how the mitzvahs, by wearing the tzitzit, it's supposed to remind us of the 630 mitzvahs of the Torah. Now, going back to our discussion for today, we're focusing on that the Torah wants us to stay focused and not stray. So I'm going to show my screen again because there's really important commentary from Rashi over here. Rashi's commentary over here is extremely important. Okay, first he tells us what I just explained to you, how you get the word 613 in the mitzvot. Numerical value of the word tzitzit is 410, 90, 10, 90. You see that? Then you add the 8 strings and the 5 knots, 613. Okay. Now, this is what's important for our discussion today. And you shall not wander after your hearts. Now, the word taturu, this word, does anybody recognize this word? What does that mean? Noach, do you recognize the word taturu? It's going to tell us where it's from. It says from mitur. When it talks about the spies that Moses sends, Moshe sends, it's called mitura aretz. They went to scout the land, to spy out the land. Okay, so we were told like this, that we have two spies in our as people. We have spies. The heart and the eyes are the spies for the body. They are agents for sinning. The eye sees and the heart covets. The body commits the transgression. In other words, we're looking for different pleasures. We're looking to get different types of ways of pleasure and delight, and good feelings, etc. Looking to find ways to make our body feel better. So our eyes skyed out. We see things, and our heart starts to desire it. So that's the one expression of desire, and then we act upon it. So now, where did it start from? It started from the eyes seeing. So it's teaching us a twofold thing. Number one, to watch what we look at. But more important, lotaturu, the obligation is not to think. Not to think about things that are forbidden to us. Because if we start from thinking, then we actually come to sinning in action. So it's a little bit of a what's the right term? A paradigm shift. We think of religion as being a way of how we act. We do these things, we don't do other things. And therefore, if we're acting in the correct way, let's say it's a bunch of acts. It's about praying every day, or praying at certain times, doing certain festivals, eating certain types of foods, behaving in a certain, giving charity, keeping Shabbat, kosher, whatever. These are all acts. Torah tells us, hold on a second, it actually doesn't start from an act. It never starts from an act. No act can happen in a vacuum by itself. It always starts with a thought. It will always start from the thought. So therefore the Torah tells us what's going to happen. The thought is where you will start thinking about whatever the thing is that you may be desiring. If you continue on that path, you will eventually start to desire it. And when you desire it, eventually you will act upon it. So, is the Torah telling us how to think? In a sense, it is. We can't deny that. The Torah is actually telling us that we cannot. It's the same thing with the idolatry. The Torah says, if you're going to think about idolatry, you may say, I'm not serving an idolatry. I'm just thinking about it. I'm just learning about it. I'm just studying about it. What's the big deal? Well, you won't come to serve it for sure if you don't show any interest in it. So actually the first law was teaching us that we're not supposed to show interest in forbidden things, and particularly in idolatry. Showing interest in things that are forbidden. The second thing, though, was about anything that is forbidden, we shouldn't even think about. Now, for those that have come to some of my Tanya classes, they'll tell me, they'll remember this analogy, because I bring it a lot in Tanya, because Tanya is all about the thoughts. Tanya focuses much less on the action and much more on what goes on internally. That's what Hasidus is all about. What's going on internally. Because from Hasidus, we want to know what's going on in our mind is where the change really happens. I'll give you an example that's really impressive. I recently read a book about a person that was feeling suicidal, and went through this whole experiment, and through that experiment found a whole new value and opportunity and possibilities in their life, and nothing changed in their life. They just suddenly, something changed in the way they thought, and from feeling totally suicidal and seeing absolutely no hope in their life, all that changed. There was no new job options that came up. There was no new relationships that had happened. Nothing changed. They had a dream, or they saw something, and suddenly they desired to live. And what had changed from wanting to literally die and actually trying to kill themselves, to the next day being so passionate about life. What has changed is that they saw possibility, they'd seen potential for themselves, they saw new ways, and all it was about was shifting their minds. This person suddenly felt happy because everything in life is in your mind. If you focus on your actions and your deeds only, and it is important in it, but you don't think about the way you think, you don't focus on your mind, you will keep on going back, because it's always in the source, it's the mind. And that's why Tanya, which with Tanya is called the long short way. The long short way means it's more work initially, but once you get there, you've transformed the whole way you're thinking, and you're not looking at doing mitzvahs as a big deal, because you don't look at it, oh wow, it's so difficult, it's so hard, but you see it as something which is close and easy and lovable and enjoyable. As soon as you change your mind, the way you think, that's where all change is happening. That's why, in a certain sense, if we were to start with any mitzvah, you would think that this would be the first mitzvah of the Torah, because this mitzvah feeds into all other mitzvot. Because everything starts with the way we think. Everything. It's about how we learn, how we teach, etc. So, the analogy that I like to give when I discuss this is about the sign outside somebody's driveway in New York. In New York, where parking, it's like parking in the city, where there's just no parking spaces. That's the way it is everywhere in New York City, right? So in Brooklyn, barely anyone has car parks, garages, and everyone parks in their own. There's a few people that are like the privileged people, and they actually have garages. And then, so there's this one sign that I saw, and outside the side, like midnight, I'm looking for a parking space, and I see over there a sign that says, "Don't even think about parking here." What does it mean, don't even think about? What do you mean? It's somebody's driveway to their garage. They're basically saying, like, how could they tell me what to think? They have no right to tell me what to think. What they're saying is, you're going to see this parking space, and you're going to want to park here. But I'm telling you, don't allow that idea to they can't stop an initial thought. As soon as you see the place, you can say, hey, it's empty, there's no car here. But then what you're going to realize, it's a driveway. You're blocking somebody's driveway. They're saying, okay, stop thinking about it. Now, whether the person, you can think as much as you want about parking there. There's nothing wrong with it. But what might happen, if you might start thinking about it too long, you might actually say, yeah, you know what, it's midnight, I'll wake up at 6 a.m. I'm sure that person's not going to leave their driveway at 9 a.m. Let me just park here, and then I'll move my car in the morning, the police won't come, etc. So it'll be okay, and then you end up parking. But if you just say, hey, it's a driveway out, the next park, it's not even an option, then you don't even think about it. But you thought about it. The difference is what the Torah is saying is exactly that. You're going to see something. Let's say you see something that is not kosher, whether it's just idolatrous, as in the first pasuk, or it's just something which is forbidden. Let's say it's something that is sexually attractive, but not for you, not for what you're supposed to be looking at. All those things, it's telling us, yeah, you see these things. But if you allow yourself to contemplate and to dwell on it, what's going to happen? The Rambam says, and I'll get into this in a moment, the Rambam says that there's 3 sins that most people are not able to, that everyone transgresses more or less, and most people, almost everyone transgresses. And he says this is one of them. One of them is speaking Lashon Hara, evil talk. The second one is thinking about things that you shouldn't. He says because people all, and the third one is looking at things that they shouldn't, like looking at promiscuous things or immodest people. And you think about it in Rambam's times, if that was relevant, how relevant is it today? Because today you could barely walk a meter down the street without seeing something immodest. You definitely can't even look at a kosher website without a non-kosher app, you know, kind of sticking out. It would be every place that we go. So if this law was ever practical, it is today. The Rambam basically says in that case is that everybody is going to, at some point, almost everybody except a complete tzaddik, but at some point will say something against somebody else, say evil. But knowing that it's wrong. The second point is everybody at some point is going to think things. The problem is when you're aware that these thoughts actually can lead you to the wrong direction, and we think, oh, it's just a thought, I just thought about it, what's the big deal? But it all starts when the Rambam says, if you remember that it starts from there, then you'll say, oh, it is actually a big deal. Because nobody ends up in the end in the wrong place if they never started there, if they even started with a thought. Okay.
Could I ask you, Rabbi?
Yeah.
If you walk in Elsnabik along the street, a lot of women don't look at men or vice versa. Wouldn't it be much nicer if you go past each other and say, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it may be? Because it makes the neighborhood pleasant without any further thoughts.
Are you talking about like the Adas community?
Yes. Is it not taking it too far by being unfriendly or not welcoming, or are we all that obsessed by sex that we can't even say hello?
Well,
Yes.
what type of answer do you want, Fritz? Do you want a politically correct answer, or do you want
Nah.
a truthful?
No, I just want truth.
Okay. So now, this is the one that I'm not publicizing on Facebook, even though this is going to be on Facebook. But let me tell you something. Most affairs start with a hello. Good morning, how are you? You look good today. Okay, that's the authentic answer. All right, the unauthentic answer is, and the politically correct answer is, you're correct. Yes, it would be nice. But it just depends how you want to be. In other words, the Rambam also says, listen, there's different approaches to this concept. And I just had to put it out there, the concept of we can't be in denial. We can't be in denial that that there's electricity between people of the opposite sex, genders, in general, whether you're married to them or not. And if somebody gives you a good morning that's too friendly, it could make you think the wrong things. You just can't deny that. Most people. Now, you may be the exception, and I agree, there are people that are the exception. But then there are people that are the other way. And you may be thinking, I'm crazy, because then you're probably the exception. But most people, if they got a too nice of a hello from a person that's very attractive of the opposite gender, it could make them think all types of things. So, and I've heard from other people that I've attended to a show, oh, come on, that's extreme. It may sound extreme, and for most of us it is extreme. And even if the person did give me an overly welcoming and wonderful hello, it wouldn't be such a big deal. I agree with you. But from their perspective, from the perspective, there's different perspectives on this. There's the secular perspective on this. There's the modern Orthodox perspective on this. Then there's the Chabad type of perspective on this, and there's the Adas perspective on this concept. I don't want to get too, because I've still got a lot to discuss on the mitzvah that we're already discussing. But just in short, the secular perspective is just, just be nice to everybody, and we don't think about what's going to be the repercussions, and that's you can't deny that, because just look at the secular world. That's what's happening in general. And of course, there are exceptions within each category, but that's generally the approach. The modern Orthodox approach is, just don't be overly friendly or whatever it is, but just it's okay, and you should be, just try to be as normal as possible and as close to as normally as acceptable. Then there's I'll say the Adass approach first, and before I get to what I think is kind of a Chabad approach, and I always like to think of Chabad approach as a middle approach, but that's just because I'm biased. The Adass approach is this: we want to stay away from they want to be the extreme of being careful and cautious. So if an Adass man and a woman are meeting each other, to them it's normal. They were brought up in a way that you don't greet each other. You're not trying to be friends with people of the opposite gender. Your wives are friends. That could be great. You may hint, you may nod, you may just acknowledge, or you may even not. But why would you even want to? Because you're not supposed. The Torah says not to look at people of the opposite gender. Don't look at anybody that could lota Torah. That's the Torah's obligation. So they're going to follow this law to the T. That's following the law exactly as it's been put, not to stray after your eyes. Okay, in certain extreme places, and I remember in Lag BaOmer seeing people being led, having their eyes closed because there's women there. Lag BaOmer Meron, there's women there, so they close their eyes and they have like someone that actually leads them because they don't want to see. So they basically walk around closed, and that's an old Jewish tradition of people that want to be extremely careful, never to look at people of the opposite gender, never to have any thoughts. We'll talk about that in a moment. So there is place for that in Judaism. Chabad's approach is that we're trying to be, that there's space for the so to speak, we'll call it the Adass approach. There is place for that. There's place for the, so to speak, the modern Orthodox approach, or the secular approach, and we have to kind of find the right balance. The right balance is greeting everybody nicely, being nice to people, but then at the same time being aware and knowledgeable and very careful of not being overly close. So never touching a person of the gender. There's no need for that. You can give the person corona, God forbid. That's one of the great blessings of corona, right? We just don't touch anybody, and then it's all good. But you have to be friendly to everybody. Our approach is we want to make everybody feel comfortable. But as soon as you touch, then you've done something that's not necessary, in most cases, and usually that could be done with the person of the same gender. The Rebbetzin hugs we say the Rebbetzin hugs the woman, and the rabbi hugs the man. There's space, and there's a need for hugging and shaking, etc. But it doesn't have to be done in a way that can definitely lead in the wrong direction. And of course, then David HaMelech puts in laws about yichud, which is Jewish law. We're not allowed to be alone with the person of opposite gender, etc. Okay.
So Malka would say, that suits me quite fine. Malka Leifer. It would suit her perfectly fine not to touch any men.
Who's that?
Malka Leifer.
Yeah, that's teacher that ran away to Israel that he's talking about.
Oh, Malka Leifer. Oh, that's a whole different topic. No, then you're going to a child abuse case. That's we can't go there.
But now I just want to add to this, Fritz. I think that with a secular world or religious world, if you walk down the street and you say friendly hello to 10 people, X number of people out of those 10 will think you're hitting on them. And you'd have to be naive. It doesn't matter if it's coming from a good place or you're just extra nice and you say hi to people. You say a lovely hello to people, and a certain percentage of people are going to think he's hitting on them. And I think it would be naive not to know that.
Well, in that case, I'm naive. I practice that every day.
I'll tell you what, Fritz, I agree with you. I personally walk down the road and I try to say hello to everybody. I know I sometimes walk in the morning after Shachrit and I go on my phone and I read some of my morning learning on my phone, and I do it as a walk. It helps me concentrate, and then I pass parents walking there. That's by a school over there, so I pass kids. And I try to say hello. By the way, most of those people don't even reply. So that's just not just Adass. It's plenty of people, Australians. This is in the middle of Bentley or whatever it is. Most people actually don't respond to me, but I do try to say good morning to everybody.
You
and I
must
think
talk
that is the
good
right,
money
I think that's
anyone.
the right approach, and I do think that's the right approach. And once again, it's about finding the right balance, but it's also about understanding. What's really important is not being judgmental of the people from Adas. They're not trying to be rude or anything like that. It's just their approach and their way of serving Hashem. It may come across as not what you used to, but that's their way, and the fault is not by you, and it's no worth in taking it personally. On the other hand, you have to do what you think is right. It's like I say, I do greet everybody walking down the street. My father taught me. My father would say, in South Africa, walking down the street, he would scream across the street sometimes to people and say, "Good morning." That's my father. He has to greet everybody. So that's the way I was brought up. The Rebbe, as I've mentioned in the past, was very much into people greeting each other. The Rebbe, of course, was very revolutionary. He's the only Rebbe, not even within Chabad, that ever spoke. He made public speakings and personally allowed women to come and talk to him on a one-on-one basis, obviously with all the halachic parameters. So the Rebbe taught us that this is the call of the hour, and it's much in our times from a Chabad perspective. The damage of not talking to people could be much worse and much more severe by actually turning them off, and we're trying to bring them close and encouraging people to come close to Judaism. So by not talking to women, it's simply not going to be work. You've got to be friendly, etc. So that was the Rebbe's approach, but that's not their approach. Their approach is we have to keep the law to the thing. The law says don't look at a woman, so we're not going to look at a woman. Okay, so it's about being understanding. Yeah.
I was going to say, by being friendly, surely you're just really saying hello and you feel around a religious person, you're spreading goodwill. So you're able to keep that goodwill within your community by people knowing you, just saying, hi, oh, there he is, this means nothing more than that.
100%. And I totally agree with you. And as I said, that is definitely what I believe is the best approach, to be friendly to everybody and say hello to everybody. Not to do it in ways that could be given the wrong impression, like Noach was mentioning, but definitely to be friendly to everybody. But on the same time, I think it's important, and I think in the times that we're living in, it's really important. I don't want to get off topic, you brought it up, but we've got a lot to discuss on this topic, but Fritz brought it up, but it's really important to be mindful of other people's perspectives.
Where are you?
Now, in today's day and age, with coronavirus, and you're having half the people, a percentage of the people that for whatever reason are afraid, and therefore what makes them feel comfortable is the lockdowns. And the other people that have a lot of young children at home, and they're not afraid of the virus because they believe the virus is not going to affect them, and therefore they're against the lockdowns because that means that they're going. And then other people that they're pro the virus even though that it doesn't affect their work, and other people it does affect their work. And it's about not just saying, not just looking at our own perspective, but recognizing that there's lots of perspectives. It's a right for us to have our own opinions, but also appreciating all the different perspectives and finding balance within them. So ultimately there's probably a correct path, which is very hard to find because everyone in the world has taken a different path with the situation, but at least to be understanding. Some people are pro-vaccine, some people are anti-vaccines. Understand where people are coming from. If you can't understand where people are coming from, I think that's where, unfortunately, it becomes uncordial and we lose our place in this world.
Maybe Fritz has a halachic question about what would a dust person do if the person they're thinking about addressing, they're not even sure what their gender is.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Joe, for lighting up the story. Okay, let's get a little bit more into the juice. Actually, I just started the topic, and we've already got distracted. So, okay, and I just want to bring a little bit of understanding now to what's behind this law. What's behind the law of not straying? So the basic understanding is that because our thoughts is what leads to the actual action. That's the basic understanding. The truth is that there's a more subtle concept within this idea, which is about being focused. And this is what's really, really relevant today. Today's age, the hardest and biggest problem, or one of the biggest problems that people struggle with, is being focused. Concentrating, focusing on one thing. Why is that? Because distraction is everywhere. Try to go on one website and then a bunch of other ideas pop up. It's very hard to stay focused. The very fact that you people are even sitting here on a shear at the same time and not getting totally distracted is, and you probably are, and as I would, but the very fact that you're doing that is just an incredible feat in today's day and age. It almost doesn't exist. The Torah is telling us that those things that would be distracting to us, put them aside. Don't allow us to get distracted, because if you start with we start with trying to figure out, let me learn about this type of culture, and then learn about this type of idolatry and this religion, etc. We think, oh, that's a very praiseworthy thing to do. So the Torah is telling us if it's something which is forbidden, we shouldn't be going there. So we're talking about idolatry. The Torah says it's a whole question about whether you're allowed to learn other religions, halachically. So many say that this teaching, the first verse that I showed you, I'll show it to you again quickly. This teaching will tell us that we're not allowed to study other religions. I know this may sound so. If it's a religion that is idolatrous, it's saying al tifnu. Al tifnu means not only to worship them, but also to even study or learn straight towards them, show interest in them. We're not allowed to show interest in. So if you're looking at Hinduism or Buddhism, it definitely has elements of idolatry to it. Or it depends which, not more like Hinduism, and different other religions. So it's debatable when we talk about Islam and Christianity whether those are. Definitely, Islam is not considered a idolatrous religion. Christianity is somewhat of a argument, depending which stream within Christianity you're talking about. But it's a whole question whether you can or can't study those religions. Joe, you look somewhat. I'm
because
afraid to take your question, but
Islam recognizes JC as a prophet.
Okay, that's not a problem.
That's not a problem?
No. It's about whether you consider JC to be a deity. So, if you consider JC to be the Lord, God forbid, that's a problem from a Jewish perspective.
But to be a Navi, to be a prophet's not a problem?
It's not within this. It's not considered idolatry.
What, like Bilam?
It's considered a false prophet. We're going to talk about false prophets. You can't have false prophets. You're not supposed to believe in false prophets, but it's not idolatry. You can daven in a mosque. As a matter of fact, the tomb, according to Jewish law, so the burial place of Hebron, Marat HaMachpelah, the place where Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rachel, and Leah are buried, our forefathers and mothers in Hebron. That is half of it is a shul and half it is a mosque, and then at different times of the year they switch. Okay, Parshat Chayei Sarah, the Jewish people go onto the side of Yitzchak, where Yitzchak is generally on the Islam side, and we can daven there, not a problem. You can go into a mosque without a problem halachically. You can enter into a mosque and you can pray there. Are you allowed to even enter into a church is a question. Okay, from a Jewish perspective, from this halacha, it's a question. Are you even allowed to enter into a church from a Jewish perspective? Why? Because according to many authorities, Christianity would be considered to be idolatrous. When is it idolatrous? If they believe that JC was a god. But if they don't believe him to be a god, my wife just corrected me, not Rachel, that's correct. Rachel is buried somewhere else. I thought I said Rebecca. JC, if they just consider JC to be a prophet, then it is not idolatrous. If they consider JC to be a Messiah, then it's also not as bad, but still problematic. All these things are problematic, and that's for that reason Islam is not that as problematic. Okay, so let's I'll just tell you a story that expresses this idea. There's a great rabbi named Reb Chaim Leib Masovsky, and he once saw a Jew that was selling books, a bunch of books next to one of the other local stores, a stall of books. He's selling books, and he goes up to the Jew and he says, "Oh, let me look at what type of books he's selling." And he opens the books and he sees that in the books there are some of them have Christian ideas, and then he saw other books actually have not only Christian ideas, but they actually had atheistic ideas. And it was next to a fireplace. There was a fireplace next to it. He took the books and he threw them in the fireplace without him. And the guy said, "What are you doing? This is my parnasa. This is what I'm just selling the books. I'm not reading the book. He said, "You're not allowed to have any benefit from anything that goes against God, whether it's atheistic or whether it is idolatrous. And therefore, because it could fall in those concepts, you can't have the benefit from it." So the guy said, "Well, this is my livelihood." So we know that when it comes to idolatry, you're not going to have even a benefit from idolatry. So let's say you have like so today, let's say you had an idolatrous church, or idolatrous place of worship. You would not be allowed to sell anything in that for a profit. Anything that comes from idolatry has to be like buried, no benefit from it. So you can't sell things or make any money off it. It's a whole question, because half the Christmas things have been, were made by Jews. I know like a very big company over here in Melbourne that sells Christmas celebration, decorations, and it's a whole question halachically where you're allowed to do that. Anyway, a discussion for another time, but it definitely falls into this question of whether that's allowed from this perspective. By the way, these laws would differ for a Jew and a non-Jew to a certain degree, but there are similarities, because one of the laws for a non-Jew is that a non-Jew is not allowed to believe in idolatry. Okay, a non-Jew does not have to believe in the 630 mitzvahs. It doesn't have to keep the 630 mitzvahs, and that's why Islam is considered a kosher religion. They're allowed to believe in false prophets, so they could believe in JC or Muhammad, but they cannot believe that JC is the Lord. God forbid, chas v'shalom. Why? Because that is idolatry. To believe that a human being is the Lord, is a God, is idolatrous. So Greek not philosophy, but Greek, what's the right word that I'm looking for? But the old Greek gods, what's the word, Nach, you're going to say?
I believe.
Yeah, the old Greek beliefs about all those different gods that they had. That example is serious idolatry. Having different powers and different different people, Hercules and all those different types of Greek people having godly
Concept.
Sorry.
Maybe concept is a better word. Of many words, many gods.
Right, so that even many gods, but even one god as in the human flesh, that's an idolatrous concept. That's forbidden to have any benefit from it. Anyway, going back to the story, he throws all these books in the fire, and the guy says, "But that's my livelihood, what am I going to do?" He says, "Don't worry, I'll find you another livelihood." The next day he comes to him and says, "Okay, I've found you a job." He said, "What's the job?" He said, the local priest is looking for somebody to ring his bell on Sunday mornings to get everyone to church. He said, "Rabbi, I would never do something like that." He says, "I don't understand. Yesterday you were selling his books and today you won't bring everyone to church. What's the difference?" He said, "Oh, that's just reading. It's information." He said, the rabbi says, "Well, where do you think it starts from?" It starts from reading the books. So this is totally antithetical to our modern day world of open-mindedness and being all out there. So it's a difficult concept, and I'm sure most of you will go home and I'll say, I'm not censoring anything. We don't believe in censorship. We have to show our kids everything and let them choose. If you know what they say, if you're so open-minded, eventually your brains will fall out. That's what that does mean is that the Torah is giving us direction. The Torah is giving us blinders and telling us this, just like a horse. If the horse sees things that are going to distract them, they're going to stray there whether they like it or not. If you want to stay focused on what you were here, you were created for a mission. You want to stay focused on your mission. The only way you can do that is by not trying to mingle and dip into every single type of culture and deity and every type of thing. Find the truth. Find it. If you're struggling to find the truth, that's a different subject. But if you're not in that perspective where you're questioning and you don't know, etc., find the truth and focus on it. And then you'll find the truth within Torah. You don't have to start judging and questioning and doing all parallel religions and deciding what does that religion say about this and this. If there's a truth, stick with it and stay with it. I know this sounds problematic because then you're going to say, well, how do people find Judaism? We were hoping that you started off with Judaism and your parents taught you Judaism. You were brought up with the Judaism. When you look at the world today, the Jewish world today, it seems like it's a difficult sell, what I've just spoken about. This seems like extremism. This belongs maybe in Adas. We should be talking about this in Adas. We're talking about Adas. We like talking about Adas up here. We should talk about Adas can talk about not teaching. Over there, they censor the teachers and they make sure that nobody teaches anything that's going against Torah. This is not for our modern open-minded people over here in Dingley and surrounding suburbs. This is not the type of stuff, or in Perth. We don't learn talk about these type of things. So let me just put things in perspective. Till the Enlightenment movement in the last 250 or so years, 99% of Jews that were born to Jewish parents remained within the Jewish fold. And something major happened. There was a major twist. And it started within European Jewry more than Sephardic, African and Middle Eastern Jewry. Because there was the Enlightenment movement. And Jews like Mendelssohn, Nachman Mendelssohn, I'm forgetting his first name now, decided to become more open-minded. This was a religious Jew. Mendelssohn was a brilliant philosopher, and he was studying all different types of philosophy, and he was one of the most respected philosophers in his time. But his children, and this is a man that died a religious Jew. His children were not even married to Jewish people. In a time that was not normal. In today's day and age, it's one thing. It's somewhat normal in today's day and age. Unfortunately, that's the situation. We all have children, or know people that have children, or our friends have children, or have family that are married out. It's become somewhat common. But in those days, it never happened. And here you had a very religious Jew, but he started writing things that were somewhat open-minded, and all his children went in the extreme direction. And that ended up giving birth to what's called the Maskilian movement, which was the Enlightenment movement within the Jewish world. And what they started doing is they started teaching kids to start opening their mind to other modes of philosophy, like Spinoza and all these other type of works, which today we would look at as being normal, but we don't realize that this is what ultimately led a big portion astray. There was it came to the point in the founder of Chabad movement around the time of the start of Hasidus, when this became really powerful, that the town of Vilna, which was like the headquarters of Jewish Torah study, the Vilna Gaon, and it was the biggest Torah center within an entire world. The town of Vilna appointed a man by the name of Shimon of Zamut as the head of a bunch of schools in a very high position. This man, Shimon of Zamut, was a big Talmid Chacham. He was a very big scholar, but he had joined the Maskilim movement. The Maskilim movement was the enlightened movement. He disguised himself as being an ultra-religious Jew, and he knew all the stuff. He'd been brought up with it, but he'd gone away. He'd gone astray. And they had created a whole movement known as the Maskilim. The Maskilim means the intellectual ones. And he made such an impression on the Vilna community that they appointed him to such a high position. And what he would do is he would get the best students in each of these yeshivot, and he would invite them privately, or talk to them, and he would send them off to learn in great yeshivot. And these yeshivot were maskilim, enlightened movements, and through that, the community of Vilna lost its top students by basically teaching them all these foreign ideas. Now you must say, oh, well, they chose it, they got enlightened. No, they probably weren't given. The whole idea was to get these people away, and eventually, actually, the way they found it is much of the Vilna community was opposed to the Hasidic community, but the Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad movement, he somehow had some type of intelligence on this guy, and he sent a message to the Vilna community. This guy, Zalman Zamut, is really is underground maskil, and he must be called out. And they did investigation. He left town once. They broke into his house and they found a whole bunch of documents that proved that he was part of the Maskilim movement, and they held a trial, etc. And he was thrown out of town and publicly, publicized that this guy is a dangerous guy. Don't allow him into yeshivot. But as a result of these movements within the Maskilim movements, huge percentage of Jewish people lost their way. Lost the connection. But it all started with one thing, with teaching them secular subjects and particular concepts which opposed Judaism. I know that this doesn't sound... I'm not teaching this. I would never have chosen this subject. I'm doing this subject because it's the next mitzvah in the order, and I'm trying to keep the order as much as possible. But one of the most fundamental concepts over here is that when we study secular subjects, which we can do, there always should be a connection back to its source within Judaism. We should always be able to see within maths, Judaism, within science, Judaism. We should never look at them as being in contradiction. If we see them as contradiction, they have not been studied properly. So we went on some very important tangents, and that's why I like questions, because I think it's important. By the way, after Tishrei, I'm planning on doing certain courses which are very rigid. So Fritz, this is a warning that those questions will have to wait for the end, because we will never finish those classes. But the great thing about classes that I make up myself is that I can always play around with the agenda. But anyway,
Rabbi, I do like Fritz's question, though, or the flavor of it, because what we were just talking about, what you just mentioned now, on the one hand, of course, we don't, learn other religions, but being respectful or courteous to people who follow other religions. So is it allowed for us to learn the correct greeting to show courtesy to someone who follows another religion?
That's an interesting question. I don't have the exact halachic answer to that question. I would think that it's okay in general, as long as it's done for, once again, the right purpose. It's about just knowing how to intermingle with these people, knowing how to be courteous and be kind. That's okay. If your goal is to become best friends with these people, that's a problem, because they will learn later on in some of the later laws that the Torah has actually put in place certain laws of how we should stop to intermingle. Once again, these are not PC subjects. Rabbis do not teach these subjects. Why? Because it's almost irrelevant in today's day and age, in the sense that we all are intermingling, but still the Torah has it's definitely not irrelevant. It's more relevant now than it's ever been, I should say.
Absolutely. I mean, we just finished the Islam.
They are difficult subjects to discuss.
Yeah, well, because we've got a Muslim, worker that comes to our home, and so just finished the Eid, and so on. And so the correct greeting for someone, during a Muslim during Eid Mubarak. But I think you mentioned earlier, Islam is not such a problem anyway, but to wish them an appropriate greeting in their culture.
As I said, I don't think it's a problem in general. Okay, I don't think it's a problem in general. But if you're going to start doing all rituals and how do they do this and how do they serve their idols and how do they serve their thing, I remember I go on to traveling. Thai Air was one of my favorite airlines to travel. I don't know if you heard of airlines. It's something from the past. People used to fly on these things that go in the air. You've probably never seen them. There's small ones. Moorabbin Airport has these small things that fly in the air. We used to go in big ones back in the day when we were young. Anyway, but those things, Thai Air is one of the great airlines, and they always give this like harashai, and they talk in this a beautiful way, and I always try to copy them, but it just made me realize maybe I shouldn't be trying to copy them because it was actually really nice. Anyway, I want to conclude. Oh boy, we're way over time. Okay. The show is over. If anybody's staying, it's just for bonus here. Now, just don't do me any favors. I do. As I said, there was so much more I wanted to get through today, but that's okay. It's always good. The conversations always end up being better than what I've prepared, so that's fine. There's a few more things that I just wanted to finish off with. Number one, Maimonides. Rambam has a lot of discussion in this topic. The topic of studying foreign subjects, etc. Of course, we know that the Rambam was one of the greatest physicians, scientists in history, at least for his times. He was way beyond his times. Until this day, they are discovering things within the science and medical world that the Rambam wrote about close to 1,000 years ago. And you contrast the Rambam, Maimonides, with a person like from the Talmud, a man by the name of Acher. Acher was in Talmudic times, Mishnaic times, close to 2,000 years ago. He was his original name was Elisha ben Avua. He was a man that started off by just he was one of the greatest scholars of the time. His students are the greatest teachers. Rabbi Meir, who's one of the most spoken about teachers in time, and many other great students. This man, Rabbi Elisha ben Avua, studied other religions. They said that when he would stand up, after he would give a lecture, they would stand up, sometimes books of other idolatries would come up, and he still served them. But later on, he went up and he did this whole vision with Rabbi Akiva, etc. And when he went up to Paradise, he saw this godly vision. When he came back as an atheist, as an idolater. He still retained all his Jewish knowledge. But they said, how did that happen? And they said it was the effect of all the knowledge, the secular knowledge that he had gained in studying all these other foreign religions. And he ends up being called Acher, means the rabbis didn't even want to mention his name because of what had happened to him. But you take a person like Maimonides. Maimonides took all the secular sense. By the way, in his writings towards the end of his life, he actually regretted all the time that he spent on secular subject. And he said he only did it because he literally needed to make a living. His brother passed away. He was taking care of their finances. And he only started studying those secular subjects because he needed to. And as great as his secular and physical and scientific teachings are, till this day, the greatest impression, without a doubt, would still be his Torah teachings. And if he would have had the time, how much more we could have got from him. Whatever, God wanted him to write those for whatever reason. But the difference is he looked at it as a way of discovering God within the world of science, within the world of medicine, etc. And if we look at secular and other subjects within that paradigm, and we teach our children within that paradigm, it's okay. In other words, it's about the way it's phrased. And going back to where we started, the thoughts, it all starts from the thoughts. If secular studies is something you believe to be really important, that you must teach or you must learn, then what are you doing? Are you doing it in order to improve your life? Or are you doing it out of interest to find out about it, to prove your connection to Hashem, etc.? Then it's okay. But if it's not, it could come out the wrong way. And just to conclude with just one final thought. The Torah, Judaism goes through two great episodes within the Torah. The first one is the two negative episodes within the Torah. The first one is when Adam and Eve eat from the sin of the tree of knowledge. A discussion for another time. The second one is the golden calf. Those are considered like the two most devastating periods from a religious point of view. What was so devastating about the golden calf? So over there, the Torah tells us that Moshe says, you guys are serving nothing. You just witness truth. You witness godliness. You witness God on Mount Sinai. And after having witnessed God on Mount Sinai, you're now serving this. This is what you've come to. You've come from Mount Sinai, hearing the voice of God, and you now come to serve a golden calf. What was so devastating about it was that he felt, in our understanding, is they were doing nothing from having the ability to serve truth, to do something real, to serve a real, true deity, the real God, the real creator of the heaven. And in a short while later, you decide to serve nothing other than nothing. That was what was so devastating about it. Now the question is, how do we avoid that? And the answer is by studying more about how to serve the truth. Okay, I'll stop there. Wish you all a wonderful night. If anybody has any questions or complaints, I fully accept.
No complaints. No
complaints. Hey, Fritz, I just want to clarify. I do love your questions. I'm just saying that sometimes they're more interesting.
I wait for the Mashiach. When is come?
When's the Mashiach coming? That's a good question.
Also, Fritz, I gotta say, I didn't mean to call you naive, so I'm sorry if I offended you.
No, not at all.
I just wanted to say that people are not going to judge you because of you. You could be the nicest person in the world. They're going to judge you because of their own worldview. So if I think that I'm God's gift to the world, and I think everyone wants to hit on me, you could be really nice and you really are nice, I'm still going to think you want to hit on me. So I apologize. I didn't mean to offend you.
No offense.
Can you bring you with the bus?
You know what? You can call me anything you like, but the truth doesn't change because you call me anything. I'm not naive. If you think so, it doesn't make any difference.
No,
absolutely, sir. I didn't mean to call you naive. I'm just meaning there's different points of view. Yes, Leon. Sorry, go ahead.
That's right. I've got to. I hear your point of view, but your point of view is tarnished a little bit because when we go for a walk to the park, Irene and she's always saying hello, and I'm saying hello to people that come past us in the opposite direction. Now, some people don't answer back. That's fine, but most do, and it just shows the true spirit of friendship that you give out. You see, so you shouldn't be worried. You shouldn't be worried about saying nice things to people.
No, I'm not. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I encourage you to come down to Dingley Chabad. You'll get a very nice welcome like everyone else.
You know what, Leon?
Naach gives the best welcomes to everybody. He's what makes Chabad Dingley so friendly.
Yes.
Leon?
Yes?
Look people in the eye.
Call me, please.
Lift your hand when you say hello. And I'll bet you will get more people to say hello back to you.
Correct.
Raise your hand.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Smile. Look them in the eye.
I go like this and I smile.
Well, you're a winner. Let me tell you something else interesting.
Mendel,
A few years ago, the JCCV organized a meeting in between